Good evening again. It's Inception Podcasts, all the way from the UK. I have a wonderful guest again tonight to have a wonderful conversation. I will introduce him in a minute. First of all, I'd like to say you can find this podcast on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, where you will find amazing podcasts with such diversity. There's something for everybody, conscious expanding, really interesting. And my God, I've learned so much off this network, things I've never heard of before. So do go to the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. And Chris Matthew, you can send me the check in the post. For that, now I'm done. Okay. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. And I love being able to come on shows and spread the message of positivity, energy, frequency, vibration, and love to everybody.
There you go. And I must say, you're looking really good tonight. And that's just for me, isn't it, Rob?
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Just for me, obviously, for tonight. Okay, Rob, are you ready? We're going to go down the rabbit hole. We've got the 8 doors and we never know where it's going to go. And I'm just going to learn and learn and learn. So the first door, Rob, is from your truth, your experience now. What is the human experience?
That is an amazing question. And to define it by just words, I'm going to do my best, but I may not do it complete justice for everybody, right? So one of the things that we understand is that the human experience is essentially what people feel, see. It's all your senses plus an included sixth sense, which we know about. Mm-hmm. While we take on this journey of learning and running through the motions of daily life, but also existential life, we get this totality of what we truly believe is reality, right? And that reality is seen through our perception. So it's different for everybody. And the human experience for me is being able to define a lot of the things around me, the who, what, the where, the when, the how, but also to engage with people, to have conversations like this that create this expression that we are all a community, we are all one. And it's sort of a motivational drive for me because I'm never done learning. And the human experience for me is I always have a moniker too. I call myself the forever learner or the forever student, because it's what drives me to just create more of a dynamic human experience for myself. So there, I hope I did it justice, but I just love interacting with people, conversations, but I also love interacting with research and figuring out my discernment on specific issues, because you can be fed things all the time.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to decide what you take, what you don't take, how it fits into your narrative of what this consciousness truly is.
Mm-hmm. Loved it. I love that. I got to say, because I'm getting slightly digressing it. I'm getting used to the different dialects of the American accent as I tune in to my guests. I always have to tune in on a frequency. And from coming from the UK, you sound like a gangster.
I've got that New York in me. And
is that yep. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember, well, I'm not going to say how far back I go to the black and white TV, and I'm thinking, that's gangster. So, and you're now a gangster. I do apologize.
This guy sounds like Bugsy Siegel. What's going on?
Well, it's like, whoa, I'm just getting different dialects. It's beautiful. It's rich. And I'm just getting used to it. And also you all say things slightly different. So it's okay. I'm tuning into you. That was a really good expression of something that's so hard to articulate. And we've had this discussion before. And I love that that's fresh and that's new. And it gives me a new way of looking at it. So I can expand because I'm running out of talking actually to explain it. So I'm going to plagiarize everyone on my show. And so I've got this new terminology. But anyway, okay, that was really, you hit the nail on the head, as I knew you would. So coming off the back of that, Rob, you've just described, I'm not going to repeat it. On the back of that, this you that's experiencing this, who am I? Who is the I that says, I am experiencing this. So who am I? Who are you, Rob? On the one expressing.
The one expressing that is a consciousness that has transcended timelines, dimensions, and realities, right? And when I say it's a two-sided question, right? Because there's the level of me that is essentially the person you're seeing in front of you, right? And I've got my hair done. I'm from New York, and there's the routine, superficial things, but deep within this head of mine, and whether you can, dictate to me whether this is good or bad, but deep within the head of mine, I feel that I am part of a I, as in a collective consciousness, right? I am you, you are me, we are one. So the I is a plural, which doesn't make sense in a lot of English narrative, but the I is a plural back to I am just an expression of this totality of an infinite consciousness that is reflecting off of what you're doing, and we're reflections of each other. So we're just passing a knowledge which could be considered light or energy between each other. We're just transistors and conductors, and we take in the energy and then redistribute it. So that's who personally I am.
I love that. That's another new take on that. I'm plagiarizing that one too, Rob. Don't worry.
You can take whatever you like. You have all permissions, and I said it live here on the air.
I'm going to rock it. I'm going to rock and roll now. I'm going to rock and roll. I mean, I use, I spent many years like talking very expansively until the point I find I'm just shrinking it down. But so for my shrunk version of that, for my simple, a simple understanding is I see it. I love the way you say the jewel that isn't the jewel. I have the big eye and the little eye. So the little eye is the mask I wear, the identity, Gloria, a host of a podcast and blah, blah, blah. But that's the mask, but there's the big eye. And why I've changed this question in door number 2 is because I used to just say, who am I? And then it sort of made awareness, well, who's asking the question? It come in. I thought, forgot about that. There you go. So this is where even the questions I ask opening the doors may have an illusionary perceived duality as I sneak them in, because the more that I do these podcasts, the more I'm expanding and learning. So obviously I'm not going to stagnate with the basic questions with the doors. It's going to expand. So that hence why I think you're the second guest. I've shifted that. Who am I? So who's?
I like that. And here's to use your analogies, right? Like door number 1 can be shut and locked.
Yes.
Door number 2 has to remain open at all times. It can never be shut on its hinge. It's a wide open door. Yep. It's like a sliding glass door, and you just slid it open. And once you slide it open, it can never be shut.
Because all the other questions, all the other doors we go in, truths change, constantly as we evolve. But this door number 2, who am I? That never shifts. The truth never changes. We may express it in different linguistics, but that door stays open. And that's the basis of the conversation tonight.
And also, you can always expand on that expression of it, right? So as we learn more, we become more expansive, right? And that's one of the other reasons, that's pretty much what you're saying. And that's why it's always open. And that is a truly amazing sentiment, right? And when we look at that on its head and we stand and stare at that, we're saying, wow, we are eternally growing and working on this internal, which in turn creates even more of an expression down the line, which is really, I mean, it's amazing. That's amazing.
It's like I've now got a new analogy. I keep digging them out. It's like a never-ending story, a never-ending journey, and it's getting it more exciting and more exciting and more exciting. And yes, so that door stays open. Okay, we're now going to go through door number 3. We're going to shut the door. We're now parachuting down the rabbit hole. It's a bit of fun here. I'm on a very comfortable camp bed. I don't know what you're sitting on. You can choose. I've got my nibbles, I've got my drinks, and I'm chilling because I'm going to lay back and listen to your truth on the next question in door number 3. Coming off the back of what you've expressed, especially door number 2, why am I here? Why are you? Now, we're coming from the juxtaposition. So I'm coming back to the Homo sapiens sapien, okay? As well as, so yes, we're going to talk in an illusionary duality. However, I know you can nail this. Okay? No pressure. Easy question for you. Why am I here? Why are you here?
Like you said, there's twofold to that, right? And I am in my current state, which is what you see, which is not the consciousness aspect of it. I am here to transcend this physical body. That is my mission as a physical avatar. It is to transcend this moment. So all of the work that goes on into the consciousness and building that expression of who I am is expanding and transcending what you see in front of you. So I've actually interlooped the physical and the Homo sapiens sapien, as you would say it, into that consciousness realm. And that is my manifestation. That is what I perceive to be my path in this avatar. Now, on the conscious side, I have been given a few different things that are my mission, and it is mission critical because when I first started doing and looking into this consciousness and what that meant for me, I was given a mission of essentially going out there, exploring specific topics, and peeling back that veil. So it's more convoluted on both sides of the spectrum as opposed to just the opposite side, or like the paranormal veil, as they say it, and moving forward into that. So I'm still working on that, but there are subsections to that mission. And one of the missions that I've just recently come into contact with was the fact that I need to create a database. And when I say a database, it's not just something that I'm putting together. It's the community as a whole, which is a networking aspect of one of my missions too, which is bringing the community closer together. So they all kind of intersect with each other. Yeah. But this database is going to be a tremendous, if I can pull this off, which I'm definitely going to, because I know myself and I won't rest until it's done. Yeah. But if I can pull this off, it will be an amazing feat to pass the tribulations of what we are seeing right now, and that our forefathers gave us this knowledge. So that knowledge is going to be divested into the database. What we're going through right now is going to be divested into that database. And what that does is it builds a collective of information for people to access, to help others to wake people up, which is another part of what we do. It also gives the legacy of our forefathers and the spiritual teachings of all the histories and all the different places that we're doing. Plus, it gives us the regular history with that forbidden history that's not supposed to be so mainstream. Yeah. And also, it's going to show us a path of contact where we have been in contact with ultra-terrestrial, extra-dimensional beings, extraterrestrial beings. Yeah. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a legacy forward. And I'm going to put it on multiple media sources. And if I could even implement this into a crystal somewhere, I would. And that's going to be the one that's going to outlast everything. But between digital, physical, and hopefully ethereal, we're going to create this database to leave a legacy like our forefathers did before for the next generation. Because if we can implement this database to be a social level or a social construct of the near future or even the far future, whenever it happens, and it may not be in this lifetime, we have done enough to give them the ability to create this harmonious society, which is always talked about. And I don't know if I'm going to call it this, but I may call the database just utopia. Yeah. Because that's its aim, that's its goal, and that's its mission.
I think that's absolutely bloody amazing. And I think, you will do it, you will succeed. And when we touched upon this before the show, and when you were telling me then, it was like, it just came in. Well, that's what our ancestors did for us. you know, whether it was the pyramids, whether it doesn't matter what it was, or in crystals. It's been part. It seems it's been part of how consciousness totally stores in ways. And back in the day, it was in crystals or in skulls or in, you know, pyramids. I said again, but I mean, today with our technology, and to have that in all one place, I mean, come on, Rob, it can be used for current experiences and over the next few years. But as it goes on, it's something that's for Homo sapiens as they go along on their timelines. And I think that's, well, you know what I think? I think that's absolutely amazing. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, you know, just to piggyback of what you just said is they did it for us.
Yes.
So it's our turn to have that baton passed to us. And a lot of where this idea came from was diverging into all of these creation stories and how they've depicted them and putting up the physical writings and the works of these ancestors. And we know that at that time, consciousness was more evolved. They had more ability to access it.
Yeah.
So, but when we come into this de-evolutionary stage that was before right now, because right now we're going back up the hill instead of down the mountain, we need to give them a book or a guide, because God forbid anything catastrophic happens, and there's only a certain amount of people left.
Yeah.
That's why all the medias are equally as important, to get it in writing and to get it digital, because an EMP pulse could take out digital. You know, a nuclear explosion could take out anything on the ground, but hopefully a hard drive might be able to last if it's in a Faraday cage of sorts.
Yeah.
You know, and if I can get it into a crystal, that would be the ultimate, like, yes, you know what I mean? Yeah. But
you're just preparing for a possible timeline. That's all you're doing.
All possible timelines.
That's it. You're keeping your options open. And I like that. Okay. Right, now we've got that out of the way. We're going to go deeper and deeper, and we're going to go into door number 4. We're in, shut the door. We're now going along the tunnels. It's like a snake tunnel, winding, winding, winding. And in this one, I'm going to pose the question, from your truth and your understanding, what you know now, could change at any point, and there's multiple theories. What is this I that's coming to experience all these things, and what you're doing, your mission to do what you do? What is this reality that we are in, experiencing, being this Homo sapiens sapien? You know, some people say it's a holographic universe, it's a simulation. I've used the analogy of the dream. From your truth, in as much detail as you can, what is this reality of polarity that we're in? What is it? What's it made of?
I believe that it's nothing. And I'm going to tell you why it's nothing. Because until we perceive it, it becomes something, right? So essentially, it could be a dream. Like you said, it could be a matrix. It could be all or none of those things.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why it's here is because the infinite consciousness, being a collective that it is, has multiple expressions, but it wants to experience those multiple expressions through physicality, through emotion, through everything else. So what does it do? It separates an expression from that infinite, and then it sends it down here to experience. And that experience is what, when we pass, when this physical avatar goes away and we are only that energy, we get reabsorbed back into the infinite consciousness. And what happens? It learns from our experience and builds and builds and builds, and it will never be full. It'll just be a different perspective of all of this. Like, let's say I picked up my mouse, right?
Yeah.
Now there's 17,000 different perspectives of how you pick up your mouse, probably infinite amount. And it's learning all of that, right? We know that the symbiotic universe around us is alive. So even the infinite consciousness is alive. It has not so much emotion, but it's sentient, right? And it wants to learn. It's just like us. We are the microcosm to that macro, right? And it has all the same things that we do, except for the wants and the needs. Those are all taken care of because it's in a place
Yeah.
where all of that transcends, whatever it transcends. It's just not there. It's just not that kind of place. And in the old creation stories, they talk about a place like this where
Mhm.
there's no death, there's no wanting, there's no need. There
Yeah.
just is.
Just is.
Right.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that you said dreams too, because this could be a waking dream,
Yeah.
right? Our actual physicality or our consciousness could be stemming from something behind somewhat of a programmed
Yeah.
reality and surfacing through the wires in this journey. And that takes me back to like that Men in Black movie where at the very end they shut the door and it was literally in a locker in
Mhm.
a big way station for beings that were just exponentially bigger than what we were. And I really think that that's somewhat of a,
It's
you
really
know,
good analogy. I like that analogy. I never thought of that one before. I mean, my favorite is um, one of my favorites is the movie. Like, I'm on the screen of this is the screen of consciousness, like a TV. Um, I'm an actress in the movie. However, as I'm observing it, as I'm playing my role, but I scripted it, I directed it, I selected all of the cast members to come in it, and that is. I prefer that one to all of the other ones. I dig out as many as I possibly can because it's something that can't be spoken. It's something that just can't be narrated it to its true self because it is no thing. However, so I see it like that. Another one I like is, and my son had it many years ago. You know these? I don't know what they're called. I don't know. You put them on these goggles, and you're in another reality in a game or something. Virtual goggles,
yeah.
and I tried them on. I went, oh fuck! I thought, where I got, I disappeared, and I'm like, ah. You know what? It just reminds me of that we're in this, or when he used to play his games like Doom, it was called, one of the big
Oh
ones.
yeah, I remember
Remember
that
Doom?
one.
And I'd get on there and I would go, oh my god, oh my god. And then I started to notice it was like life. I didn't know what was round the corner, and I could never shoot the mother fudgers, but my son was an expert at it. So they're the sort of analogies that I, on my own truth, relate how I interpret my understanding of what I'm in. And that by doing that, obviously there's no suffering because it's just a game. However, I digress slightly, but I do love hearing different analogies for this because there's always going to be one that you've never heard before, and it presses the button for somebody. Somebody's watching it and go, wow, I get that one. I don't get that one, but I get that one. So do you want to
I've
add
got
something
another
to
one for
that?
you. I've got another one for you. You know how you said when you put those goggles on, I'm sure you felt disoriented. Your
Oh God,
balance was off, and
yes,
it took you a moment to adjust. It's just
yes,
like an infant coming into the
yeah,
world,
yeah,
not able to walk, learning how to keep its spine straight and
yeah,
balanced within
yeah,
this realm or this reality. So that virtual reality shows you that there are similarities to an infant coming into this
yeah,
world,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
it
no,
shows you that it very well could be the same exact concept.
yeah, because it really was. What it does, it shuts down. I don't know. I think it shuts down left brain or whatever it is because we need to analyze and work things out and it literally just breaks it. And you're like, and goggles up, and you have to look. Am I still goggles up? Ah! It. But maybe that's what we should all do is all get a pair of those just to kickstart. Get a bit of disorientation to kickstart us to saying this is so not real. Anyway, we're now going to go into door number 5. Now, this is where the conversations slightly changes. We are going to talk external because we're still here, me and you, in the physical bodies, experiencing, and we're on a bit of a journey. So we've got to go here. I'm going to ask you in door number 5, and there's no going back now because we got to door number 5. But always remember door number 2 is open. Who is what we label ET? So ET is the umbrella question. It could be angels, it could be greys, it could be extraterrestrial, interterrestrial, underground being, it could be anything, all of the above paranormal. In relation to us, and I will add, they're in our 3D dream. Let's call it a dream. They're with it. So they're obviously in polarity too. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this movie. Okay. It's a movie about polarities. Who are they? Who is E.T. from your truth?
I think that they are also expressions of the infinite consciousness. Now, some of them transcend the 3D to the 4D and the 5D, which would become into the dimensional realm of beings and the physical reality of those beings. Now, I believe that if there is a creator / infinite consciousness, which can be both the same thing, that it wouldn't just stop with us. That would be arrogant.
Boring.
Right? And very ego. Right. And statistically, with all of the other planets that are out there, for there not to be some sort of life out there and anywhere is statistically almost impossible. That there wouldn't not be that we would be the only ones. It's statistically impossible. So I believe that they are an expression of that infinite consciousness. They're just as an expression that we might not be used to, whether it's a older version that came up that was sent out well before we were, or is new and after us. Because what happens is, for us to get the full experience of our consciousness, we need to be amongst those which we are like. So there are probably batches of infinite consciousness expressions out there somewhere where they're amongst who they are like, to get a different perspective completely from what we're doing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. No, I like that. That's a real good analogy. I like that. Okay, on that note, okay, and then in door number 6, we have to obviously come from the juxtaposition, which is the illusionary duality, Homo sapiens sapien, and consciousness. How, Rob, are we connected to them? Now, coming from the juxtaposition, whichever way you extrapolate from, it doesn't really matter, but you can go Homo sapiens sapien. Is it DNA? Is it a bloodline? We are aware we're all consciousness. We've discussed that in door number 2. That was that. So really, maybe for those that are coming into this field and not as yet have been made aware of the juxtaposition and the play we're in, could you answer from the Homo sapiens sapien? Is it DNA? Is it bloodline? What is it? How are we connected to them?
I believe that there's definitely a bloodline that dates back well before we were here, right into the days of Atlantis, and the DNA is there. And what we're doing now is we're trying to create that conscious connection again to them. So we have there is this connection that we feel to them, which is also why we have abductions and things like that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to take that third eye connection and create it. Right. And I can tell you a quick story about what happened to me. And I've never had, in my 40 years before this, I've never had any kind of contact. So I thought. Maybe it was, now I'm actually in the process of going back and reevaluating my life in the places where I've missed time and things like that, because we were putting on an event. It was in the beginning of August called Total Disclosure, 55 speakers over 5 days. And we also did an event prior to that called the Allure Prophecy, and a specific day of December 21st of 2000, I think it was 2020, and it was a meditation event. So while the people who were at the Australian Uluru Rock were at the rock, they caught glimpse of a UFO, and they felt that UFO was giving them a nod, like, we see what you're doing, and like kind of like an approval, and then it was gone. So to get back to the Total Disclosure event, we were 2 weeks ahead of that event. And that was around the time that we were waiting for the United States government to come out with that disclosure packet telling us what we wanted to know. We knew that we weren't going to get anything. So we planned this event for right after that to bring on experiencers
Yeah.
and historians and researchers to really give a disclosure, not just on contact, but on everything.
Yeah.
So I was outside of my house smoking a cigarette with my fiance, who is not a believer in this stuff. And I looked up and I saw a star, and it looked like a star because that's how high it was.
Yeah.
It moved towards me in the sense of across the skyline coming my way.
Yeah.
And then it darted and disappeared. And that was, again, them giving me a nod, like, we know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
And my fiance was like, I cannot explain what we just saw. And then after that, I recorded 7 different planes within a triangle pattern within 20 minutes around that area.
Yeah.
Which shows me that something is going on, because we have an Air Force base that's not too far from here, but not too close either.
Yeah.
So it goes further. Now, I go to Texas to visit my family. A lot of my family lives in Texas. My mother's 70th birthday. I'm outside at 3:00 in the morning. And again, I have another experience, and it's exactly to the date of 2 weeks later after the event. And again, it was sort of like a nod, like, great job, done. And then they were off. And the one thing that I think about now that I didn't think about then is I've always wanted my fiance to be a part of this style community. So I'm wondering if I manifested that contact to give her the ability to see something she couldn't explain to open the door for her.
Yeah.
I
mean, my truth is just my truth, but I would say, yes, you did, because we create our reality. So there you go. It's a given. It's whatever we choose to do. And we are within us, we go on vibration, which is emotion. We use the word emotion, but it's different frequencies and vibration. And what we put out comes back. What excites us, that's part of the journey. The excitement drives you forward. And when you're in that excitement, like me being an artist, if I'm painting, I don't think of an outcome. I don't even know what I'm going to paint. There's no planning. It just happens. But I'm in that excitement, so there's no outcome. But I'm just living in the now, in that excitement. So if you've got that excitement for anything you want, and it is a true heartfelt excitement, it's going to manifest by default. Again, it has to manifest. So it could be that, and many of other things as well. That I do acknowledge that when there's a recognition from them, I can't explain it. For example, when I'm just using discernment or something, I don't anything. I can, have I got that right? And then vroom, 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 vroom. It's because it's like you're giving a permission slip, because we have, obviously, as Homo sapiens, free will, choice. And as soon as you give that permission slip, and it's not even a cry for help. It's like, do you know what? Vroom, it comes in. So I think it's maybe a dual process there. You're manifesting. So you're, and I always say, I do say to people, be very careful what you wish for, because if it comes with excitement, you will manifest that. For example, if you want to, in this reality that we're talking about, this reality, even though we've called it a dream or whatever, and then we've gone into how we're connected to them, we are powerful, powerful beings. We have scripted this to create this. And that's where responsibility comes in. And even how we're connected to them. And people have said to me, oh, I really would love to see this type of being. And I always say, please be very careful what you wish for. Because if you've got that excitement and you haven't done any of the internal work on yourself,
oh, it's bad news.
Trauma, it's just going to be fear-based trauma. And that will mask it because it's the fear. So, and this reality and how we're connected, it's, as you know, I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, is all interlinked. It responds to emotion. What emotion goes out comes back at you in the mirror. And so I would say, if you've got this heartfelt intention and excitement for your fiance to, it's going to happen. There you
go. Right. And the thing about it too is that, you know, it's a wild thing because I've interviewed so many people who have had that contact, and I always just thought to myself, well, maybe it's just not my turn now. Now I've had it before, but maybe it's just not my turn to have that experience. And then, at 40 to be like, what the hell? Now all of a sudden it happens. But now you think back, you go, wait a minute. If this happened now, when else would it have happened? Because you hear about people's stories and they say, it hasn't happened just once.
No.
It's always been over time. And since they were a child, so now I have to go back and reevaluate my entire knowing.
I tell you, I do it all the time with the human memories. And I make my statement, hindsight's a fucking bitch. Because you go back and you go, oh yeah, that was one. Oh yeah. But whilst you're missing it, whilst you're missing actually what's going on, because it happened, but your attention's not on it because you're in a belief system, you're still moaning, well, that hasn't happened to me. Well, that's not fair. Well, what about me? And because your attention is seeking, or we could say, working from the conditioned belief systems. And that's why I can't reiterate enough, do the work on yourself. Find out what you're not before you find out who you are. For me, it's the best process. But the way that you've described that, and you will go back, and I've spoken to many experiences, and they said to me, oh my God, this is the first time. Of course, then I read energy, don't I? I can't help myself. And I go in because it's part of this being. And I go, no. And I go, you're going to find that you were contacted before. It happened, but you need to, if you change, Wayne Dyer 101, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yes. So you'll recall the memory first of maybe a paranormal. Your belief system will label it, define it, categorize it. But as your consciousness expands later on, you go back and look at it, you'll see it totally different. It wasn't what
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's about the whole of this reality. And also the way that we're saying in door number 6, how we're connected. There was a time where I know even for me, being an experiencer from childhood, I thought there was a separation. So it's a process. Now I look back in hindsight and I go, oh. And then that gave me the understanding that, because I could never understand why they felt so familiar. Like every experience was anew, because obviously memory, you just forget. And there was always a string all the way through of familiarity. I know you.
I've been here before, almost like a deja vu, but in a sense of a collective, like, wait a minute, this has been a moment that I've seen and felt and heard and saw before.
Yeah, exactly. We're just seeing it from a different perception now, which is beautiful. Okay, right, we're now, Rob, we're on door number 7. Excuse my coughing, I've had it today. I went out and they're building and diggers and dust, and I'm in a village and it's dust everywhere. You come in, you go, can't breathe. Anyway, apart from that, door number 7, excuse me. I'm asking the question, why are they here? However, they've always been here. And we've already discussed how our consciousness didn't even realize at some point because of blah, blah, blah. But when I say, why are they here now, I'm talking about the contact between all different types of phenomena, extraterrestrial or interterrestrial, there's such thing, and all of the above labels. It seems to has increased exponentially, more and more, and it's faster and faster. And the information is more like we call it the downloads, more knowledgeable, more knowing, and it's also affecting Homo sapiens because they're just waking up, and it doesn't matter how far, there's no barometer to measure who's awake more than another, but they go, and why are they here now? What is this period that this 3D reality is going through now from your truth? What do you think is going on?
This is the Great Awakening, and the purpose of the Great Awakening is for us to join the collective. So they are preparing us so we're not caught off guard with what is the next steps of transcending what we are to being even more. And our true potential, like you said before, is never fully known. It's something that we don't probably couldn't even express in words. And so they don't know it either, but they know that we can do more. And they know that we can be more. And that's why they're coming from everywhere. The next dimension, the other realities, from space, from under the water, from the inside the planet.
Yeah.
They are feeling us on such a level, and it's something inside of them, and their consciousness goes, okay, they're getting ready.
Yes.
Something is happening here.
Yes.
We need to make sure that they stay on that path and don't fall off, because this collective, and we could talk about the galactic federations and things like that, but that's not, it's deeper than that. We're at this moment where this awakening can go one of two ways. And probably it could go a bunch of different ways too, but the two major is good and bad. We know that there is a duality in the universe of good and evil. And a lot of people are reaching out from both sides, right? And they want to make sure that we know what those sides are. They want to make sure that we know that we have the ability to choose.
Yes.
And not be conflated or conflicted or be stuck in servitude to something else. Whether it's the good or bad, both sides want to let us know that we have a choice. And we're getting to that moment where we're going to have to pick a side. And when we pick that side, we have to be in 100. It can't be half-assed or anything like that. We have to be on that side. And even on this planet, there will be a divide. Some will be good and some will be bad. And that's just the way it's always been. Since the beginning of time. And if we can transcend that duality of good and evil, we've won completely. We've won the universal lottery, the consciousness lottery, which usually is not going to happen. It's always going to remain in that duality state. But that keeps some of us sharp. You know, if we won the whole universal lottery, we might become complacent, and then we won't be where we are. We'll de-evolve and go back to the duality, because that's just the way that things work, right? And I really think that we're getting to that precipice. We're on the top of that wave, and it's about to crash over. Do we dive through it, or do we ride it all the way into the beach?
We ride it. We ride it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm actually on a speedboat, by the way. I'm sorry. I've had enough. I'm on a speedboat.
You're jumping off the waves. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. I resonate with what you're saying. You know, you call it the Great Awakening, and I hear that a lot. I mean, I just use the different terminology, but it's the self-realization, boom, which is an awakening. Why I don't tend to use it too much is because consciousness doesn't sleep. And the word awakening infers something was asleep and then woke up. One thing I've learned, the awakening is absolutely fine. But one thing because I would, on my journey, I would question, you know, I started off in the non-duality. So I was going, okay, there's a juxtaposition. I'm asleep, but I'm awake, and the mind was like, but then I came to an awareness that through whatever way it happened, I have always been aware of who I am, even when I was little. Change the way you look at things, and that answered a question. I'd use a lot of discernment on it. When did I wake up? Why? How can consciousness sleep? How can God sleep? And I'm going through all the, you know, using that discernment. And then because I worked on it, it was, oh my God, it was an experiential knowing. I was never asleep. It was always me doing it. And it went like that. But I don't use the word awakening, but I totally understand it in the context Doesn't make me right or wrong. But you right.
I'll tell you why I do use it is because there is a moment, and we talked about this the other day with thresholds, right?
Yes.
And when you pass a specific threshold that makes you question, the dormant parts of your consciousness become alive, and that's the awakening.
Yeah.
So when that like switch flips, all of a sudden, your discernment goes off the charts. Yes. So you've awakened that it was never asleep, but it was dormant, and you haven't accessed it yet. So it's like you're shaking the cobwebs
online,
off
isn't it? It's just gone online.
Yes.
Connected.
And that's why it's an awakening, because now your full range of senses just poof. It's your head seems like this in that moment. You're like, oh my God, what is all this that's going on? Why is the information rushing at me in such a way that I've never seen it like that before?
Can't comprehend it. There's no rationale. Right. There's no comprehension.
And you feel more alive at that moment.
It is. Yeah, I do. I say free.
Yes. Free. You broke the chains.
Space.
You broke the change.
Yes, space. There's a space, and it's a big ass space, and it's just space. And it's like, So, but I as I said, we've all got, and this is the beauty of this, Rob. We can all have different ways to express it.
Absolutely. I love it. I love that too, and that's why I had to explain that, because I wanted people to understand why I use it like that, because it can be described in so many different ways. We have to accept everybody's perception of their reality.
Because we're all going to self-realize in different ways.
Yes.
Some may be similar, if they hear the word awakening, that's their way in. If they hear my way, they go, I'm not sure. And that's fine. But they
thought about it. And that's the key.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key.
That's the key on doing it. Okay. Now, this is so lovely. I love this conversation. So now we're going to the last door. Doesn't mean the podcast is over, though. On the back of everything we've gone into, and we've gone really deep, and we have expanded on it. Why are they interested in us? Now, we have touched upon this. We're going to expand, though. We spoke about how we allow, how they're aware, we're awakening, or whatever terminology. But why do they? Another civilization, obviously of a higher frequency. I mean, put it this way: they don't go around doing what we do: murder, rape, pedophilia, lying, cheating, materialistic, don't give a fuck about anyone but myself. Okay, they don't have them human traits. So on the back of that, I've changed that question, or someone has. Why are they so interested in us? For example, if I even say for myself, I've always wondered, through the years since childhood, why have they always been interested in me? So I'm going to flip that back to you.
Two reasons. Because just like we're doing for each other, we're waking each other up, and their guides told them that was their mission. And second, it's because we're family.
Yes.
And if you have a brother or sister who's not doing something right, you're going to tell them, or you're going to guide them to those points where they can make decisions based on the information, right? And that it's as simple as that. They were given that mission. That societal construct was given that mission because accepting us into the entire galactic scheme of things will only enrich them as much as it enriches us.
Absolutely. Because I always say everything is awakening. Mother Earth, the trees, the plants, the animals, the planets, the invisible beings that are just light.
They're becoming visibly more sentient.
There you go. That's a brilliant way of putting that, Rob. Hold on, I'm plagiarizing that too, darling.
Go ahead. Because they were always there. We just didn't have the ability to see them as well.
Yeah.
I've worked on animal communication, plant communication. I've done a wide range of meditations and specific meditational practices to try and achieve an ability to understand what and who they are. And the fact that they are sentient took me a while to realize. But I mean, I have done animal communication. It's been the wildest thing I've ever done. And I was coached through it, but it worked on such a level that, like, there was a cat, and I'll tell you just real quickly, there was a cat around here who was abused, and it wouldn't go near anybody. We call it meow meow because it always meows twice, never meows just once. It goes meow meow, like it's talking to you, and you're like, wow. So I meditated around it, and what I did is I didn't divulge myself onto it consciously. I let it know that I was there, and just stood my ground. And now, when the cat sees me, it runs up to me, sits in my lap, and it does it for nobody. But I was able to communicate with it on that level. Whether I spoke words to it was a different story. I don't know if that was exactly what happened, but we exchanged a almost like a medium sense of comfort between each other, and we exchanged that notion, and we recognized it, both of us. And it's really, really wild. Just like somebody I know that works on horses, and the horses that she works with heals people. They bring you out into a bed that's for massages, and the horses literally go around the people and pinpoint the areas that need work, and they heal it. It's the craziest, most wildest thing I've ever seen.
You know, I so understand it. I know it works. And I always say, I can't, when I speak to another being, I try to express, if you only knew who you were, what you could do. And it's like, it's impossible to express such magnificence, such divinity, I can't do it. However, what you've just spoke about with animals and everything, I have a little analogy for that, for sometimes can get people's mindset in the door, is, for example, telepathy. What you're doing with animals is the same as telepathy. There's no difference.
That's right.
One. And so it's a form of telepathy. And we're not verbal beings. That's a human trait, to have the experience. We are psychic. We are telepathic. We
became verbal through de-evolution.
Absolutely.
We didn't start this way.
No, and we have such, how can I put it? You can say qualities, maybe, where, telekinesis, psychometry, astral travel. I was trained in remote viewing, and we have all, and we are so much more. So for me to hear that, when I hear that, it doesn't blow my mind, because I thought, well, that's quite obvious. The more that you have a recognition, I'm waiting for my superpowers, Rob. Yeah, no.
You already have it. It's already there. You just have to unlock it.
Exactly. But I see it in a jestful way, because I have an awareness of understanding with that the responsibility not to infringe on another. This is, and also when I always say the most powerful being is the being that doesn't use the power.
Absolutely.
That's for me. So there is a count of responsibility, and it could be misused.
Absolutely. That's the analogy, is you can lead the horse to water, but you cannot force it to drink, not make them drink, force it to drink.
No, you can't.
And one of the things that we do see within this community that we have is people who don't believe along the same lines want to pressure others to believe exactly what they think.
Yes.
And that's what this aspect of free will comes into, that mode of thinking. And that's where perception is so important, because like I told you this the other day too, is that there's a difference between facts and truth.
Yeah.
Facts is an empirical data point, like a number or a percentage. A truth can vary because it's seen through the perception of my reality.
Yes.
My reality dictates my truth, and it may not be your truth, but being able to look at each other's truths, enjoy them, and explore them.
Yeah.
It is truly a magical moment when people can do that.
It's beautiful. And then, but if you've also, you're quite right. But then if you have an awareness that I consciousness am experiencing all things at all times, in all places, all timelines, all universes, then how the hell can I judge you or condemn you? Or I know you're me experiencing it slightly different, or it's going to be so frigging boring if I'm experiencing the same. It'd be Groundhog Day repeatedly.
That's right. That's right. You'd be living the same day over and over and over. And that's not why we're here. We're here to grow and learn and experience. And like I said before, that experience goes back to the infinite consciousness, and it satiates its ability to want to know it all.
But to look at like the doors we've gone in, it really opens up a more understanding that I find the more. I mean, I ask the same questions to the same doors daily on multiple podcasts, but it's so beneficial to me because it is so easy for the unconscious to slip back in what you're doing. You need to keep going. You flow. Don't stagnate. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And then when you allow, just the allowing, there's no doing. There's no doing. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I every day, no matter what day it is, and sometimes I miss it, but I'm not perfect and things get busy. I try to do at least 20 minutes of meditation and 20 minutes of conscious breathing. The meditation is to expand and what I need to do, what I need to focus on. And the conscious breathing is for me to appreciate the now, where I'm at right in this moment. And when you start to realize the now is the long game is just as important as the short game. So the right now is ultimately as important as the future. And when you can enjoy both and sit there and ponder and look at what you're doing in both, you tend to get a grander scale of where we fall or where we lie in that grand scheme. And it helps me to stay focused on my missions. Well, because I'm reiterating it to myself all the time.
And there's that resonates with me. I call it making the space. And I've never been a meditator. I'll go into the space of the now. However, what it seems to be natural now, how I started off doing it, I would get a biscuit and consciously eat the biscuit. Trust me, you try and eat food without thinking. At first, I've got to do the dishes. No, come back. And then experience the now, the action. And then what I used to do little things like that, all my attention was on what I was doing. And it was slightly easier for me because I became aware that when I was painting my art, there was no thought. I was only ever in the now.
That's a beautiful sentiment. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And there's infinite paths to source.
Yes.
So whether it's the cookie, whether it's meditation, find your practice. Find what you do to create that moment.
Make that space. If you I will say once you log in, do not worry. I will say the venom is in and the serum's going to go. You don't have to do no more. Once you just log in, once you've been there, well, there is actually no you doing anything. I want to reverse that. I need to change that statement. The being, we spoke about what we do, how do, and it's all doing, but the actual being doesn't do jack shit. It's consciousness. Consciousness is doing it. And I know that's another paradoxical statement.
Of course, but they all are. We can't put it into words. We're trying to explain it to the best of our abilities, and there's no real words to describe it.
Deconstruct my statement. Deconstruct it in your time. The being is not doing, Gloria is not doing anything. Consciousness, it's a juxtaposition. And I can't even fathom where I'm going to go.
You know what you said? You said coming online, and it took me back to the AOL days when it was like,
oh, do you remember that? Are you old enough for that? Oh,
I was like, oh boy.
Dial-up.
It just came up so fast. I was like, oh, wow, look at that nostalgia. It was like a Facebook memory in my head.
Yeah. And then if someone was on the phone in the house, get off the fucking phone. I'm trying to dial up here.
That's right. That's right. Or they'd pick the phone up and it would cut the connection. You're like, God damn it. Come on, man.
And you think, I remember that. Sometimes, because living in the village, our internet is, I could get cut off at any time.
Mine too.
It's a hot fuzz village. I call it. It's from a film. The hot fuzz is like that. You don't know who's living here. And sometimes the internet is like, and you see the circle. And I said, fuck, this takes me back to dial up, you know?
Yeah.
I'm paying this money and I'm on dial up. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I'll be in the middle of an episode and like the people will still talk and it just cuts me off.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even there. I have to reboot my computer in a sense to do the internet. And people, I tell them that before we start. I'm like, listen, if I don't answer you, you see me frozen. Keep going. Just like you said to me, you keep going.
I tell you, my identity pops in now and again. It was the other day. It was doing it again, and I had this blue circle going, and I'm going. You call yourself the fucking fastest internet in the UK?
Bullshit.
Do you know what I mean? I phoned them up and said, "This is happening, but you've got Halo. You've got this." I'm going, "Hello, yes, I know. I'm paying for it." Well, I'll tell you what. We'll put you onto an engineer. You're onto an engineer within 1 minute, the line's gone dead. You know what I mean? Because you're cut off, even from your telephones. What can I say? Do you know what I mean? I better enhance my telepathy sometime soon. You know, Rob, it's been a really, I knew it would be a really enjoyable journey going through the 8 doors with you and down the rabbit hole. And it's been, every show I do is fresh, and this is so fresh. I'm so plagiarizing you. Sorry, darling. Okay. And I'm going to look so good on the next show that I go on. Before we finish, is there anything that you would like to add from the conversation we've just had before we go?
That's a good question. This journey is never ending. Mm-hmm. So don't be caught up by the daunting scale of what we're doing, right? And a lot of people say that is, they say, I'm trying to find that enlightenment. You already are enlightened. When you're utilizing your tools, you're already there. So now it's time to focus on the ways that you can use what you have to create more for others and give back.
Yes.
And I think that that's ultimately what sometimes we miss, because inherently, as we know we can be selfish, and I catch myself all the time, like, oh man, and to think that anybody on this stage is perfect is beyond. That's beyond, not even, could be further from the truth.
No.
Even with the way that I talk or you talk or anybody talks, they have their moments. Nobody's infallible. Right. And I'll be the first one to tell you that my moments come often.
Yeah.
Often.
It's a daily.
Absolutely.
And something comes up. And for me, I'm glad it does. It keeps me in check. Yeah.
That's right.
And I always remember years ago, years and years ago, decades ago, and I was listening to, I think it was Papa G, and he was doing a sax song, one of them, or Muji. And, if a point ever comes that you say, I'm awake and I'm God, and you do nothing wrong, he said, just anyone that says that, run from them. Run, because it's a constant. There's no getting out of it because we're still in it. I can't become a physically dead until the occurrence of it. So, yes, I do believe whilst we're on this journey, and I don't own this statement. This comes from Robert Falocco, if I said it correct, the pretend Italian man on my show. It is, and I like how he interprets this, and it resonates with me because I can't find nothing better. The spiritualization of matter. So we stay as we are, doing all the mistakes and the bits, not as bad, but as each time it's the matter or consciousness is permeating the physical consciousness. Yeah. Right. And so the being will change the physical components, because every cell is consciousness and blah, blah, blah. We all know that, but it will change. However, whilst we're still here, something new something new may come to see how awake we are. It could be like your neighbor and just say something to you and you go, wow, yeah.
Oh yeah. Wait, maybe I shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And that's the key, you know. We're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
Never stop listening and never stop learning. And by those fundamental tools, you should, you know, everybody should be okay.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Rob. And I will end that with saying, find out what you're not and who you're not first. If you find out who you're not the beliefs that were given to you, you're not the ideas that were given to you, or the concepts, or the culture, or the name. Find out what you're not first. A challenge.
That's right. I like that. I like that too. That's amazing. And
on that note, I thank you so much. However, I do have you coming back for the special, which is going to be mind-blowing. It's all about Rob. It's going to be mind-blowing, totally different to this podcast. Before I close the podcast, once again, thank you everyone that's sharing and watching the podcast, and thank you for the messages and the invites. I can't respond to everybody, otherwise I'll never be off social media. You can find this podcast on Forbidden Knowledge News Network. And as I said, there are amazing shows on there with amazing diversity of hosts asking multiple questions in multiple ways. And there's always something for someone on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. And on that note, everybody, until my next conversation, bye for now.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.